And welcome everybody to a special edition of the Cold Hard Truth on Sports. I am Matthew Long, here with my co-host today, James Bell, contributor for college football and the editor.
Doing all right here, man. Doing all right. Just here live at the Sheraton Atlanta Hotel in downtown Atlanta. Just approaching closer to the college football playoff national championship game here with the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Georgia Bulldogs. So just anticipating this matchup between these two teams.
I know yesterday, media day was 2.5, almost 3 hours there. I know we were able to talk to all the players that they had available. For the most part, get some information from them. A lot of it you have to do a lot of reading between the lines and understanding what they're meaning by what they're saying, because they're not going to say a whole bunch,
Right.
especially with ask like offensive, defensive coordinators. Those are my favorite groups to ask head coach, because they don't really know what they're going to say. They just have an understanding that they can't give you too much.
Right.
So we'll explain today for everybody what we drew from media day yesterday. We'll get into the game preview and also look at these teams, and that'll kind of be how they got here. Will be also in the synopsis of breaking down our predictions for the game. So it'll be a special episode. It's a little bit shorter than our normal episodes on Tuesday. We will have a show on Tuesday, but this is a special edition we wanted to do here live from Atlanta. We're at the Sheraton Hotel, the home hub for media days, and wonderful elevator music in the background. So that's provided complimentary of the Sheraton Hotel.
Elevator music. I'm sorry. Worse than elevator music.
It's like if a hippie had an elevator, this is what they would play.
Pretty much.
Hippie elevator music.
Yes. Basically, hippie elevator music. Yep.
So, so yesterday, again, go over to the social media at the CHT on Sports, at the CFB on Sports. James, you put it over on yours.
I'm going to basically share it on my page here in the next few moments here. So,
I mean the content. You put it on your page.
Yeah.
Your Twitter. James' Twitter handle is JB's.
for 2000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then mine is Matt Long Sports. A lot of content over on Snapchat and on Instagram as well. But definitely through Facebook are areas you want to go check out a lot of the content and stuff that we have up over there. So first team that rolled out, Georgia. They are the top seed coming into this. Their team. They were a 3 seed in the playoff. And they're coming off of a high-scoring win over the Oklahoma Sooners. What did you grasp from Georgia yesterday to talk with them?
A couple of things that I was able to get through a few of the players, like Sony Michelle on Saturday, was that they kind of tried. They were having their best efforts trying to get past that Rose Bowl victory, as exciting as it was, getting that 54-48 double overtime victory over Oklahoma. They wanted to, get past that game and then prepare for Alabama, because it was like a different approach to, facing someone or a team in Oklahoma that had Baker Mayfield, very prolific offense, a team that pretty much got ahead real fast on Georgia, able to make their second half adjustment to an Alabama team that basically, has a defense that's consistently been the best in the nation, specifically, and an offense that is a control that runs the ball and doesn't make mistakes at all. So it's like you got to go from week to week. You're preparing for completely different teams, and so that's what I got out of Sony Michelle and Raquan Smith, the linebacker, All-American for Georgia.
You know, it's kind of an odd thing. You know, Sony Michel had 3 touchdowns in the Rose Bowl,
Mm-hmm.
and the run that ultimately sealed the victory for Georgia in that game. So obviously, media is going to be drawn to him. What was kind of unnerving, in a sense, to me, was how much of a lack of attention media was giving to Nick Chubb.
Mm.
The setup was essentially you had Kirby Smart in the middle. To his right was Sony Michel,
So Michelle,
then
yep.
Nick Chubb, then DeQuan, and then the defensive.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
that's the whole setup to the right.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now, obviously, there's a whole bunch of media around Kirby Smart the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
Sony Michel was pretty busy at the beginning and pretty much had somewhat of a crowd the entire time in front of him. Nick Chubb had a few people there at the beginning, but it seemed like half the time that we were, this is an hour, about a half hour, he kind of had scragglers the entire time, which is odd. I think because he's one of the top running back prospects to come out of this draft.
Yeah.
Some people think that he may be a better prospect than Todd Gurley in some ways. I don't agree with that, but they tout him like that. And just having that alone, we're a month away from the combine. We're 2 months, a little over 2 months from the NFL. And at this point, for media not to take advantage, how does this cap its crew? Because media, they take a lot of events like this that are special and try to use those that information to build up for future articles. So if you're building a profile for something you're going to do in the future, so even if you don't ultimately write too much or quote what he's saying, it's something you're going to build up for the future. But it's like he was the man at the beginning of the year, and now at the end of the year, all the attention's being paid to Sony Michel. Now, I'm not going to say that there's some sort of anything going on in that locker room because they all seem very tight.
Right.
And I don't want media to construe that.
Right.
They're all very competitive.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you talked to him a little bit about that, did you not?
Yeah. I mean, there was like a short little talk out there with Nick Chubb, but us personally, we really didn't have that much time as far as like with the Georgia players that were there. But yeah, to see not that many people around Nick Chubb, considering that he's about to transition over to the National Football League, was kind of surprising to me. Specifically, going from his previous performance at the Rose Bowl, it wasn't like Sony Michel was the all everything, do everything guy in the Rose Bowl. Nick Chubb was no slouch either. I mean, he also had like 145 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns at the Rose Bowl game. So it wasn't like he had a very bad game and ended up being benched for the rest of the game in the overtime. It was just that Sony Michel basically had the biggest story because of not only the touchdown that won the game, but the previous runs that he had before, and also the fumble that he had that ended up being returned for a touchdown that could have cost Georgia the Rose Bowl. So I mean, a lot of attention went to Sony Michel over at Media Day, but that still doesn't take away what's going to happen, what may happen upcoming in this national championship game against Alabama. Oh, they're sure to use both Sony Michel and Nick Chubb in this game, and that's going to be part of their game plan on Monday night in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So what I'm looking forward to is how they are going to run their offense against Alabama defense there. You saw Alabama's performance in the Sugar Bowl, and we saw that there was a stark difference in how they performed in the Sugar Bowl in comparison to their last game of the regular season against Auburn. There, where they didn't have all of their players back on defense. Um, they weren't necessarily able to execute on offense either, but specifically the defense from that Auburn game to the Clemson game was just it just looked like a completely different team. And I think that was because of the depth that they were able to have and the players that were able to come back for that particular game at the Sugar Bowl.
Now, I know the interesting part about these two teams, and talked a little bit more, at least I did, with the Alabama side about some of this comparison, uh, or rather familiarity with these two teams. Kirby Smart clearly being the previous defensive coordinator in, at Alabama, and then Pruitt on the other side. He's been through Georgia before. Tons of recruiting. So a lot of familiarity between recruiting these players, familiarity between common employers, working together. So there's a lot to draw from here. It's friends against friends, or at least a significant amount of familiarity in these two teams. Now, again, it comes down to who you ask, how much that familiarity is playing into the game. But I think some of that is a factor here, and Kirby Smart would be up against statistical odds here because none of Saban's former assistants have ever beat him. So that is something that would be rare and unique for Kirby Smart to do. Now he did highlight a little on during media days that they're here in Georgia. It's essentially a home game. Them being also the home team. I know when we cover boxing, we talk. The boxers sometimes say, home team in the championship fight, being the home fighter. Sometimes there's some difficulty because there's a lot more distraction than any normal other fight that's within their state. So I asked Nick Chubb about it, and he hasn't seen any sort of drawback from it. Right. Again, from sport to sport, football players I guess don't feel it as much. From the few guys that I talked to on either team, but it's something maybe it's easier with football teams. As funny as it is, 100 and some guys, to isolate from outside environment. They can potentially do a lockdown of the team inside the hotel, and they do that a lot to where they open up ballrooms like that and build game rooms inside a hotel that doesn't have it. So they go all out to make sure that these kids stay, these young men stay in an environment that's going to be conducive to them not being drawn away from the game. Kind of like just after Georgia beat Clemson, they had an issue with two players getting pulled over. A reserve wide receiver.
Oh, you mean
was
with the SEC championship game with Auburn?
Yeah. So again, both players aren't involved in this game. Neither of them are playing. No need to even bring them up. But I think there is definitely a chance for Georgia victorious in this game based on what I've seen this season. Now, Alabama. We had Alabama for for an hour. We got them for the full hour. So we actually were able to have a little bit more time with them. We got some actually. If you go over on social media, you can see on posted up on the Facebook page on the CHT on Sports Facebook page. The Alabama players were playing PlayStation came in this year, and actually had set up there where they had 6 monitors, um, NBA 2K on one, Madden, NBA 2K on 2 of them, Madden on 2 of them, and then they had FIFA on the other 2. So they were all crowded around, hitting sticks, playing the game. So it was kind of a fun atmosphere, and I liked that better because last year in that area they just had more tables for media to sit down. So it really wasn't too much of an advantage.
Yeah, they kind of made it more conducive for the players in this sense, in the in comparison to last year. And I think like you were mentioning here with Georgia and whatnot, that they kind of wanted to make it to where the players are kind of loose, kind of while they're basking in what's happening over the course of this week, that it doesn't weigh too much on.
Yeah.
You did mention Georgia in reference to this kind of being like a home game for them. With them being in that a couple hours away drive from here, but perform here in the SEC championship game, and so it's pretty much going to be like a repeat of that as far as like the atmosphere is concerned. Um, so that's why I don't think it's that much of a burden. And like you mentioned, with these teams, having like 100 players, up to 100 players on the roster, it's not like everything is weighed on one particular person. Like with boxing, when you have like for example, with the Terrence Crawford that has his fights in Nebraska, or like a Ricky Hatton in the past, or Anthony Joshua over in the UK, where it's just one person, fighting in the UK with a whole bunch of fans behind him. So he has all of that pressure because he has all that attention goes to that one person instead of the attention going to, it could be 5, it could be 10, it could be 20 players. So that's the thing that Georgia over the course leading up to the national championship game that they have to deal with, but it seems like it's easier for them to deal with that here in the coming days.
Now, we got to spend, like I said, we got to spend more time with Alabama than we did with Georgia. I think from my end, I was able to draw quite a bit from it. And again, more of my questions were kind of looking at how the teams are going to deal with. Most of my questions that I ask are, how are the teams dealing or planning for one another for the game? What concepts are they looking at here? And I know that they're not going to give me too much as far as matchups. What do you see here? A lot of times, with people, if you've never been to these events or been near the scrums, you kind of want to take note not just of the players who's around you, but also which media, because there are some media people that ask really good questions and quality questions. But there are a lot of people that come in and ask very typical vanilla fluff questions that really they're not drawing anything from at all. I don't think the fans are getting something from it. I think they're just, as a writer, they feel that it's helping them find a couple of different adjectives. It's just changing the words on the paper. It's not really changing the meaning. So, finding people and listen to their questions as well. I know one thing we do. I know a lot of people are like, well, if you're at Nick Saban, how do you know how who is talking about? Because we have these earbuds that we can listen to as channels, so we can listen to every question every response, but even a bigger part is we get transcripts of all the questions and all the answers from from all the players and coaches that are selected. Now, all the players are there, and you have access to all the players and coaches. You just have to pull them aside, walk up to them,
And yes,
ask
you
them
can ask
questions.
questions. Yeah.
Now, we only did content, from what I know, we only did content with featured coaches and players. Uh,
Right.
However, I did talk to quite a few players and coaches as well. So, um, again, they have certain players and coaches set up for valid reasons. So, what did you draw from Alabama's media versus? Well, what did you draw from it?
Well, with Alabama's media day, particularly, what I focused on is, various questions on how they approached this particular national championship game. I mean, of course, many of the college football fans know that, we've had the college football playoff for 4 years now, and Alabama has been part of it for all 4 years. And, this national championship game. But last year, they, lost closely to Clemson over at the Raymond James Stadium in Tampa. So my approach with most of the players that were there, particularly with Jalen Hurts, hmm and and Rashawn Evans there at the podiums for media day, was that how they approached this particular national championship game, particularly with Jalen Hurts, as a lot of people were talking about how that game ended last year with Clemson, ended up winning 35-31, and um, had like a lasting picture of him walking off of the field at Raymond James Stadium. So you'll have to get. I wanted to get the response from that, and how he would feel if he was able to finish this particular game, winning the national championship. You'll be able to see that particular interview on the CHC on Sports Facebook page, and also check it out on the CHC on Sports through Instagram. And I also have that on my Instagram page as well, JBC4 2003. So that's what I got out of Jalen Hurts when I interviewed him. With Rashawn Evans, you have Rashawn Evans there. He's a senior. He's been part of their defense, all 4 years. Been part of the college football playoff for all 4 years. 3 national championship games. So this will be, last game of his collegiate career, and that, he kind of approaches this game like thinking back that, I've been here 4 years, and I've been part of this college football playoff for 4 years, been part of these big games for 4 years. And he just, kind of thought about, like, wow, I've been part of this big stage for all of these years. And so he just wanted to pass down that type of knowledge of being part of big games to, those that are behind them, back there in the linebacker core. And that, if he was able to finish his collegiate career with the national championship, I mean, it would mean everything to him. There are also, times like you were saying, there's, also people, you know, giving questions that kind of like reached a personal level for some of those players,
Yeah.
but also you kind of like had things where, they were
Is
trying
the
to have
Plus
fun,
Weekly yet?
you know,
What is it?
questions, loosen them up. You also had, players like Deshaun Hand approached Rashawn Evans one time and, kind of like asked him, who his favorite teammate was on the team. So, it's kind of like a mixture, trying to see what
Yeah.
their mind frame is going into this game on Monday, but also seeing a little lighter side from those players and also the coaches as well. We also got that from that hour that we had with the Alabama Crimson Tide, because we actually got a couple of good things with the coaches there for Alabama.
And then I just I want to welcome everybody in over on Snap. You see here, we're in the Sheraton Hotel in Atlanta, live for the show today. Also, thank you to all of you listening live over on Blog Talk Radio and the Spreaker app. Free to download the Spreaker app. You can listen to it over there, as well as YouTube and SoundCloud, where you also get the podcasted versions of today's show. Also, the website, of course, thechtonsports.com. Up left hand corner, clicking on the listen link, and it'll get you right over there. So, I think one of the interesting things, like I said, with Alabama, I was able to draw more from them. I think, as far as what they were looking at for this game. They bring in an offensive coordinator that has NFL experience and college experience, and he's still kind of stuck to what Nick Saban likes traditionally. What you'll see this year out of Alabama, what we've seen all year, and those are some people just watch championship games because they're a bigger deal.
Right.
If you haven't watched Alabama all year, but you did watch them in the championship game last year, this is going to look different than what you've seen. They have talented running backs, although I think Georgia has definitely the edge. I keep saying these two running backs, but in reality, Georgia has three running backs that they can.
They have they regularly use,
Yeah.
but they could use up to four in their roster. So it's kind of like a mirror image of what we're seeing here in this game between Georgia and Alabama. It's just that you're gonna have to figure out which team will have the big plays, whether it's on defense, whether it's on offense. That'll give them the momentum on Monday night.
Yeah, and I asked a question to Pruitt, how he feels that if familiarity was something that would help or hurt them, and he said it could kind of go either way. Generally, they do have their game plan, and they're going to stick to what they do most weeks. But when you could have a tendency in situations where you are so familiar with your competition and the coaching staff on the other side and the kids on the other side that you've recruited, that sometimes there could be that tendency or that door could be there open, even if it's not gone through, that you could end up overthinking a situation, trying to over strategize. Well, I know Kirby Smart likes to do this. This made a little wrinkle in his playbook that I learned from what he likes to do. This looks like that situation. Maybe he does or doesn't do it. Maybe you overthink it and you leave yourself open to, a 65-yard touchdown run. So it's kind of those things where where too much information ends up being a bad thing. But on the other end, Alabama's offensive coordinator didn't really give me anything on that but a big smile, and kind of moved on from there. I got two big smiles out of that. I asked him that, and then I asked him because actually, when we look at this playoff, I talked about this on Tuesday. Levon Kirkland was on the show, talked about that, and Kevin Kress as well. The big thing that we kind of drew from it is Alabama, the 4 seed, was more so treated like a number 1 seed coming into this tournament because they got a bye week, whereas all the other teams had to play in to this game. Clemson had to beat Miami to get in.
Right.
Georgia had to beat Auburn.
Oklahoma had to beat TCU.
Exactly. So it's another matchup where all 3 of those teams had to beat teams that they've already played. So it makes the game tremendously by having to play a team for the second time, because now you've learned things.
I mean, with the exception of Clemson, they Clemson, went through a schedule where they played the likes of, they had the
Oh yeah,
out
they
of
did. They
conference
didn't
game.
have Miami.
They didn't have Miami in their schedule, but they had Louisville on their schedule. They had to play Florida State, which is always a close game. Um, and one of their out of conference games was against Auburn near the beginning of the season. Part of the home and home series that they had. So so they had like a kind of schedule that
And hats
had
off
them
to
work.
Auburn and Clemson for doing home and home.
Yeah, yeah,
I'll hit on that.
yeah. We'll
I'll
get
hit
into
on that.
Yeah. Um, and so with Clemson, going up against Miami, over in the ACC championship game, Oklahoma TCU Big 12 championship game, and Georgia Auburn, the second time during this season for the SEC championship, that kind of took a little bit out of them. But with Alabama in this particular case, with them not playing the SEC championship game, they had a week of rest. And one of the stories over the course of the season was the depth on defense for them, and that they didn't really have that much, in the front seven, and also with the secondary. But with this, with the extra week, and then the break before going into January 1st, so they had more than a month off before the Sugar Bowl game against Clemson, and that benefited them tremendously. Just being real, that benefited them tremendously approaching that game against Clemson, and we saw what they were able to do to Clemson's offense, where Clemson just could not do a thing anywhere, not through the run game, not through the passing game, not anything. And I think that kind of like helps them out here going into this game on Monday, even though one of their key players won't be in this game here against Georgia, as Anthony Jennings
Yeah.
near the end of that game against Clemson, injures his leg, so he won't be suited up on Monday night. But it was like completely different than last year where Ohio State was able to get in, even though they didn't win 10. But Alabama, they took advantage of this opportunity to be part of the college football playoff, and now they have a chance to be once again national championships in their second college football playoff championship, and their dynasty may continue for yet another year.
And it's very interesting um, going through these players and coaches, and this is talking about what's to come. Because as much as some people will try to turn to the past and talk about past games, both teams are tremendously focused on this game.
Mhm.
Now, I think that Georgia has some glaring disadvantages in this game, even though personnel and staff wise they stack up really well. One thing is, Alabama had the last game that they played, the regular season game Alabama played, was on November 24th. That means they had 7 days off before they had to play Clemson.
Right.
You gave Nick Saban 37 days to prepare for Clemson and rest his players. Now that's only another 8 days of rest. It's 8 more days, but 8 more days is huge when it comes to impact sports like this.
Mm-hmm.
I think Lon Kirkman spent at least 5 minutes of our segment with him that was just specifically him talking about how important rest is, especially in a playoff environment, because everything changes. You can't necessarily. I've talked to players that said you can't coast through a season. You'll get hurt, and with football you can get hurt, but essentially in a way that in in the playoffs you exert yourself so much more. Like you give it all during the season, but
Yeah.
you're trying to. It's maybe the last game. That's why we end up seeing stuff like that, like Jennings. We see them going on. By the way, he's having a knee surgery, so ahead of where he'll be going into the NFL draft. There's been quite a few back linebackers from Alabama. I feel like they come out lately. They end up having surgery just before the draft. It seems to be kind of trendy, but we won't get into that right now. The other thing that I see is a bit of a strength on their end is Alabama had on Georgia against Auburn, against Clemson, and against Auburn twice. Now Auburn's team has beat them. So this again.
Yeah, you're talking about reference to Georgia over the course of this season.
Yeah, yeah. So
their big games were against Auburn. They did, also play Notre Dame.
Well, yeah, but the reason I'm saying it's more of a draw because Alabama, when you can look at like opponents, it helps you in your process of strategizing, breaking down game film. You know how your players stack up. And Alabama haven't played a head-to-head this year.
Mhm.
They have seen them
Yeah,
play
yeah.
Auburn twice and Clemson once. So although Clemson, so they know how they prepared for Clemson. So I can see here they compare in a similar way because one of the big advantages people say that for Georgia, he's a pro style, he's a passer. He's really athletic and he has great mobility and he can scramble. So I think even more than being a runner, that he's a quality scrambler that can get yards. I think that's a bit more dangerous than being a runner because his passing skills are much better than Jalen Hurts, and I think that he has a bit. I would tip the hat to them as far as it comes to quarterback and running back, slightly towards Georgia on those scales. As far as wideouts, I think with on the other side for Alabama, I think Alabama has a little bit more edge on the outside at wide receiver.
To me, I'm not sure about that advantage. I mean, Calvin really is a very, very good player, but the way that Alabama's offense runs is not like it kind of like
it doesn't
relies.
run
It
through
doesn't
the
really, yeah, it doesn't
It
run
doesn't.
through the receivers, but it's like it's more of a quarterback dependent type of offense. So you're not going to you may see like a little bit of play action where they'll be able to utilize, so to speak. But you know, over the course of this year, we haven't seen Calvin really like stand out like receivers in the past. Of course, you had Julio Jones in the past.
But this is a championship game.
Yeah.
And if you draw back to previous championship games for Alabama, and Alabama's whole mindset is pound it, pound it, pound it, pass. And
Yeah.
I think what we'll see with Alabama here, and I think Brian DeBall, offensive coordinator for Alabama, I think he's going to come out here and he realizes that just going to be looking and keying in on the run. I think he's going to try to test Georgia on the second and third level early. They're going to look to utilize Ridley early, and they're going to look to utilize more pro tile slanting and stuff that worked last year under Saban or under Lane Kiffin. Some shorter, more timed routes, short two 3 step, or it would be a 1 step plant throw in a pistol or shotgun. So I think that's what they're going to look to do that because, and then also Alabama I think is going to look to get more involved with a bit more of some screens or utilizing the wide receivers more on the perimeter because what that does is it starts to soften up that front seven because the linemen for Alabama they're leaning on these guys all game. But when the defensive linemen are going hard, not getting there, they're trying to go hard, not get there. And when they're so focused on pass rushing, sometimes does is them, and they call it winding the clock, where you get the guy going in a circle, then you change it up. Winding the clock by doing this, and what that does is open it up for Scarborough or somebody to take it right up the middle, and then start pounding it. Now that's drawing linebackers back in, and it really upsets the balance of the defense for Georgia. See, that's the thing is that Oklahoma was really successful at upsetting the balance because they don't have a pounding rusher. They have, James. He's a speed guy. He's really shifty. He's smaller, so he can hide behind, his blockers. But Oklahoma opens stuff up in space. I could see Alabama at the beginning, even though I'm willing. If you're looking at prop bets, I'm willing to bet Alabama's first play is a run. Without a question, it'll be a run play. I think everybody's prepared for that to be a run play. But then I would look for 3 or 4 consecutive to kind of switch it up, because that's the thing is what great teams do in big situations, able to capitalize on things that are far outside their tendencies. It's about doing stuff that they're not good at. Alabama can do this. Really is an amazing wide receiver. That's why an edge on talent and a receiving quote to Alabama. But, and again, that's not saying that Georgia doesn't have talented wide receivers, because they do. But I'm just giving Alabama the edge, and I think that they're going to try to open up with a bit more spread components to a more open, not spread, more open component to their offense that they have the ability to do, and they can do well, even though their bread and butter is running the ball. Because what they'll do is it brings the hands down so they can hit the face. I think that's what they're going to do. They'll switch it up here in this game to try to take advantage of Georgia early.
Well, I would be interested to see how Alabama's approach is going to be in the opening quarter of this game. They have a bevy of running backs. They use Damian Harris a lot. Bo Scarborough has been a focal point of their offense. They've had freshman Najee Harris there in the backfield as well. But I would like to see how Jalen Hurts is going to be able to utilize the passing game against this Georgia defense. They over the previous 2 national championship games that Alabama is part of, a lot of the big plays in the game didn't go to their receiver; it went to their tight end. So they were to throw off the coverage or confuse the coverage well enough to have in the previous 2 years OJ Howard either like come across the middle or just be like wide open on the streak route to where he was able to. It was against Clemson in those previous 2 years, but now you have it to where they don't have OJ Howard anymore. They have like redshirt freshmen coming in there right now. Also with Harold Hankins.
But I think that opens them up even more, because they know that they doesn't have that player. So I think that's how you can open up the play action earlier.
It is an opportunity to open up the play action. But for me, in my opinion, I feel that Alabama sticks to what works to a T more than any other team in the country. And the only way that you see something outside of their approach is if they see an opening in coverage or they see an opening in the defensive formation. So, like for example, if they're like in a spread formation and the defensive formation for Georgia doesn't match up, they're going to find that open route as fast as they could and get it going. Specifically with Jalen Hurts, because Hurts, I mean, to me, is not like a quarterback that makes the big play. He makes the right play, and that is like a gift and a curse at times, because when sometimes when you see the big play, you're not able to make it because of your ability as a quarterback. Now, I kind of like saw that out of Jalen Hurts in his previous game at the Sugar Bowl against Clemson, where he may have had guys open, or he may have had an opportunity to like throw big passes, and he wasn't able to complete them because he couldn't make that type of throw. Um, so here against Georgia, I'm looking to see if Jalen Hurts could see those openings in coverage or in the openings in Georgia's defensive formations that they will be able to exploit once the ball is snapped, and if they're able to get that play and get big yardage out of that or score a touchdown from it.
Now, on the other side, um, I think, because I think Georgia has an distinct advantage at quarterback. I think, again, Fromm's young. He's a freshman. He he'll have some jitters. I would assume so. And even those people that are cool in these first possession, that's why I see probably Georgia's going to come out, focus with Chubb, focus with Michelle on screen passes, short dump offs, get his confidence up, get him eased into the game. They're not going to push it. So, whereas I think Alabama is going to come out liberal with what they're doing on their playbook, I think Georgia, is going to come out a bit more conservative, focus more on running and getting from settled in so way they can get momentum through the game. And basically, that's the way that it kind of was in the Rose Bowl, in a double overtime victory there. He was, at the beginning, it was kind of like it wasn't really going, so they want to probably get him settled down soon, do some high percentage passes, short, something that's going to get 4 or 5 yards, and then just try to move the chains 3 to 5 yards at a time. Because that's kind of the goal. The goal on a run play is you want to get 3 to 5 yards, because that's either going to set up third and short, or you're going to get a first down every time. Getting 3 to 5 yards. So they're going to probably stick with consistent stuff like that.
Yeah.
Now, if that's it, and they do that, the hard part is on the Alabama side. If you know this, and this is where Jeremy Pruitt was kind of leaning. If you have a tendency, kind of something, maybe you overthink it. You don't want to get the players. You want to keep them easy. Think, okay, we game planned this. You see this before. If you feel this, manage it, but you don't want again too much information, completely an enemy. So it could leave you wide. You jump a route, it's not there. Maybe somebody has the back, the post route behind. Now it says the safety bit on something. That the post route is wide open. So, those are the kind of the things that can make decision making difficult, especially when it comes to teams that are so familiar with each other. But like I said, I think Alabama does have some distinct advantage. Now, we talked with Jeremy Pruitt a little bit about with the linebackers, because they've had some injury there. There's been some turnover at linebacker. Obviously, Jennings is out for this game. He will have knee surgery. He's done for. He will not play. And what they do, what Alabama in their recruiting does, that it's not unique to Alabama, but what they do is kind of, I think, in some ways, more of a small school approach to a big school atmosphere. When they don't recruit linebackers like to say, okay, you're playing middle linebacker, you're a middle linebacker, we're going to look for a middle linebacker. They recruit guys that could potentially play, especially if they're in a 4-3 formation where they have three backers. So they want all their backers to be able to play um, any of the linebacking positions. And throughout the season, they're giving guys reps positions. This way, when we come to situations where Jennings is out, his impact of being out is lessened because of the fact that the guys behind him have had reps
Yeah.
at that position. So they move their guys around. This is why some of the linebackers and defensive, if he's really with when Alabama players go to the next level, end up being successful. Not always at the particular position
Right.
that they were at in college. So,
Well, in reference to that, um, when you have like a linebacker, as you brought up, play those multiple positions, they learn different coverage techniques. They learn different areas that they get, whether it's a pass play or a run play, so that, like you said, once they do transition over to the NFL, they're able to make those plays because they're all over the field. And in some cases, they could depending on their size, they could end up being a safety as well, in college and in the NFL. And that approach kind of, that works for Alabama and how, they're very deep in the linebacker core, but also, a lot of them are very versatile. So if they have that type of versatility where, they could play like at the edge and linebacker or be a middle linebacker, that it works for them, on both instances. So that's something there that kind of Pruitt has as an approach with their linebacking core, and it also like helps their front four. Now, in reference to this particular game with Georgia, I'm not certain how Georgia offense is going to approach this game. They do have Sony Michelle and Nick Chubb there that could get the pressure off of Jake Fromm. Um, but you don't want to end up being too predictable in or being too conservative or too safe. One of the things that I saw in the Sugar Bowl with Clemson and Alabama, particularly with Clemson, is that they kind of coached the game conservative against Alabama. They do things to take chances. So it was almost, yeah, I do have these running plays, do want to, utilize my running backs and my quarterback. But if you have like a weakness in Alabama, and a lot of times Alabama's weakness has been the secondary. You try to exploit that and use that against Alabama so that they'll be on their back foot, so to speak, on defense. So I will see if Georgia is able to use Jake Fromm, in order to see if he can get big plays on the edges with Wims out there at receiver, and also doing screens and things like that to kind of like keep Alabama on their heels. If they were able to do that in the opening quarter of this. Now, I would say like on Monday night, what we have here with Georgia and Alabama, like we've mentioned earlier about this kind of being a master versus apprentice type of matchup with Nick Saban, there on one side, former assistant there, Kirby Smart on the other side, and I think it was like mentioned here earlier about I think it was in particular with Kirby Smart, being asked how it would be to go against his former mentor, so to speak, and I would say like what the pressure would be for him to go up against Nick Saban, and we've heard about the previous time Nick Saban has faces former assistants. He's pretty much like won every time. So here with this Georgia Alabama matchup, we're kind of like seeing if you know Kirby Smart has something up his sleeve that Nick Saban doesn't know about, or if Nick Saban has something that he didn't necessarily teach Kirby Smart. There. So I'm kind of like interested in that if it's like a master versus apprentice type of thing. Going off the Star Wars theme that happened over the past couple of weeks and everything like that.
I taught you everything you know, but I didn't teach you everything I know.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
Yeah. It's exactly. I taught you everything you know, but everything that I know, it's like, okay, what does Nick Saban have for him? Particularly on I would say on offense that Kirby Smart wasn't aware of, while watching the team when he was at Alabama, because he was watching the offense in those scrimmages and those practices, but did Nick Saban utilize the full playbook that he had alongside his offensive coordinator at the time? And that's something that I would like to see if and I feel that may be where the big plays comes from, not necessarily from a bust in coverage, so to speak, or a bust in defensive alignment. It has to be something where you kind of see yourself aligned correctly, but it's just a play that you really didn't expect coming out of Alabama, and I'll be interested to see if that does happen on Nick Saban's side.
I kind of keep coming back to here, and I think it's going to be a huge factor. It's going to be interesting. The strategy between familiar foe. Thinking and knowing that, it's crossed Kirby Smart's mind. None of, former assistants have ever beat him. But also, none of his assistants seemingly have gotten the same success as quickly to this level as Kirby Smart has.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a question, and kind of before our eyes, we've kind of seen Kirby Smart has been able to do more than the others assistants have in the past. This may be a prelude to him doing what nobody else has done in that regard as well. But he's just coming off a game just a week before. It was a double overtime victory coming from the West Coast. A lot more time, a lot more energy. Any of you, I think about when I travel, even when I'm traveling by myself, let alone if it's with my kids. That is having 2 5-year-olds traveling. It's nerve-wracking because they want to be everywhere but where you are. A lot of people.
Yeah.
So even by yourself, trying to catch a flight, it's either your connecting flight you have to run to at the speed of flash, or it's like I gotta wait 5 hours.
Yeah.
It's almost like, why if I'm gonna wait 7 hours in an airport in Atlanta to get to Gainesville or Tampa, let's just get a car and get there in 6. I'll save myself 2 hours. It's probably cheaper to have a car than flight. I don't know. It's just look at a one-way ticket there. It's just it's like you wonder like how some of these things are that really relate with how they beat down on your body. Now I know they compare playing football to car accidents, many car accidents. If you go over to the website, thechtonsports.com, we actually have an article up that I put up over there. I wrote a week and a half ago because the NFL is investing $100 million into safety and player health, a lot of which is into all of it's either into basically neuroscience or um, new technology to help prevent head injuries, to make the game safer. Um, but essentially what they actually use car crash test dummies in those studies, in that research, because that's the best use of the actual equipment for football. It's like car crashes. So, so not only did they have a full game of that, they also had 2 additional quarters of that, and then they went from the West Coast, which is hours time difference, went through the mountain. They went through the central to get to the east. Yes, they got the same 7 days, but they didn't exert the same energy. Again, high affair, double overtime, coming from deficit in quality rest because they've had to play longer. And again, not to mention, they had to beat Auburn to get to that game. Alabama, again, their last regular season game before they played Clemson was Thanksgiving weekend. They did not play in the month of December. They had basically about a week off at the end of November, all of December off, and then play January 1st. That is huge. Where Clemson played the day after Alabama, and then Clemson played um, uh, against Alabama. So I mean, even Clemson going into that is significant because they had played their previous game before that, before Alabama. Then they had to go play Miami, a high energy, up tempo team, for their championship game before they played Alabama. So every time a team goes on a field, particularly in a championship or playoff atmosphere, there are layers of that onion that get peeled back and get exposed, and now offering up something to your opponents, wrinkle, a glimpse, a situation that they can now plan for or plan against. And that is, again, bye weeks are so important. Again, they say that, Alabama, like you said, they do what works, and a lot of that is predicated on the offensive line. They have a mobile quarterback, so that's going to free up some of that offensive line. They run a lot, so it's not a lot of guys sitting there time after time being tired as more in pass blocking, because it takes more time and energy to go backwards and side to side and block than just run, and plow over somebody. Less energy exerted that way. So run pass blocking does take a bit more energy, so they don't do as much of that. So the big thing is, when we're coming down to this, is how do they match up? And again, I just want to reset here real quick. Thank you all for listening. A few callers on the line. We're not going to be taking any calls this week, but Tuesday, if you call in on Tuesday, number 347-237-5539. If you call in on Tuesday, again, thank you everyone on Snapchat for checking us out today. Me and James here live from the Sheraton Hotel in downtown Atlanta. This is a special episode for the national championship here on Monday. You can check the Snapchat out. It's at Matt Long Sports. All the show related is at the CHT on Sports. And thank you again for those who tuned in on the free Spreaker app. You can hear the show live on the Spreaker app. Just go to your app store and download. It's free. You can listen to us live. For those who listen to the podcast version of the show on over on SoundCloud and on YouTube as well. Some of you, we have a couple different versions of this show. We have a couple different versions of this show for YouTube and for SoundCloud. So definitely check that out. Thank you for tuning in at the CHT on Sports and at Matt Long Sports and at J Breezy 43. So check us out there. Now, what I'm seeing as far as looking at the breakdown of these teams, again, like I said, I'm giving the advantage at quarterback, running back slightly to Alabama. Now, does that advantage going to change the game? I think at quarterback and running back, those are game changers for Georgia. I think in a lot of ways that gives them an edge in this game and puts them ultimately at the end of the situation where they could win this game. Conversely, I think Alabama is more consistent and number one run defense in the country. So Georgia, because they have those distinct advantages, they're going to have to try to utilize those areas more. I don't know how successful will be. It's going to be interesting to look. Does Georgia get from settled down early, get them in set early, can they start rolling? Ultimately, I think because of that, Alabama's steady, more consistent approach, I think that they will do something outside their tendency and early run and 3 or 4 pass plays to try to set up an early score. Oftentimes, whoever scores first wins, especially in championship games. Alabama go into deficits very often at all. Often not in a situation where they have to come back from deficit. So, that being said, I see Alabama, drum roll, here's my prediction, that Alabama wins this game by a slim margin. It's going to come down probably to the last possession or two from this game. It's going to be wildly entertaining, but Alabama edges out Georgia in this game. I think Georgia leads at one point, maybe even at half, or just after half, but Alabama ultimately wins, and it's not going to be, it's going to look like Jalen Hurts is a stronger passer than he is. Their system is building around high percentage throws for him, and them utilizing more bootleg plays for him to open up the coverage, so he can get the ball into those pockets on it. So how Kirby Smart kind of recovers from that, there it goes. But I see Alabama winning by a slim.
Yeah, I find it interesting there that you say that Alabama would win by a slim margin. I feel that I guess it would look like similar to one of the games that they had against each other in the SEC championship, where it kind of like came down to the final possession.
A yard.
Yeah, basically where to finish, and so I guess here that may come it may come down to that same thing there, where it would come down to a big play by the Alabama defense in order for them to hold on to win this particular game. For me, I give the edge to Alabama. Not sure if it will be like really close. I would say we within 7 points. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Alabama because of the way that their defense has played off the Sugar Bowl. I know that they do have the key injury there, but I just think that they've been much fresher going into this bowl season and this college football playoff, and that's really big. So they'll have a lot of players coming rotation on the defensive line, a lot of players on the rotation of linebackers and in the secondary, and just give different looks to Jake Fromm. And I don't feel that Georgia on offense will play quickly in order to throw off the Alabama defense. I'm not necessarily saying that they're going to play conservative. I'm saying that they may be, more uniform in that they're going to do to where they're not going to have Alabama thrown off on defense. They're basically on their back foot. And
So
so
you think kind of their similar fates as what Clemson? I know you say Clemson was actually more conservative, but not same, but similar kind of fates where it's too, it's
it
almost too
would be,
scripted.
yeah, it would kind of seem, you know, I mean, my thing with Alabama and how they've performed over 6 years plus, they have a very impressive record, over the past 6 or 7 years, and in many of the games that they've, had close calls, losses against, were a quarterback that was mobile. We saw it with Sean Watson in the national championship game in the past 2 years. I think we saw that in the close game that Alabama had with Mississippi State. We saw that in their loss to Auburn. There we had Jared Stidham at quarterback, and sometimes they were able to run the Wildcat formation on Alabama. And so, to me, I would feel that you would have to have some type of mobile quarterback to throw Alabama's defense off. And I don't feel that Jake Fromm is mobile enough to throw out the Alabama. They had like a bad start against on offense, and then made adjustment from there. But Alabama is a team that really doesn't, if they really don't give up leads very easily. Like I've said before, with Jalen Hurts, he often makes the right play. He's a big play. He often makes the right play. So you don't get that opportunity to get turnovers, and if you do, you really are able to take advantage of them. We saw that in the Sugar Bowl second half, where Jalen Hurts had bad on the handoff, ended up fumbling the ball, and Clemson got it, but ended up basically going 3-and-out and getting a field goal off of that, which kind of changed the course of that particular Sugar Bowl game, because after that, Clemson was not able to score at all. And if you're not able to get that type of Bama, it's almost like you can pretty much forget about it. So for me, I say that Alabama has the advantage. Um, I'd say around 7 points, and yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it would be more than 7 points for Alabama. I just don't see where the Georgia offense will be able to do something to throw off their defense, and then on the flip side, where the Georgia defense will be able to have the opportunity to force turnovers on the Alabama offense.
And from media day again, just so kind of people know, up until yesterday, I'm not trying to shoot my prediction or theory down here. Up until yesterday, I honestly, my thought process with Georgia was kind of this game. Up until yesterday, but I just want to take a sidebar to kind of bounce off what you were saying. I think again, what I learned over the couple of years, being able to beat fans, and hearing Saban, listen to him talk, being able to be privy to some things or in front of the camera. What I've kind of learned is some of the secret sauce that Nick Saban has isn't. I don't know, and you kind of got him. Great question, James asked him. I haven't heard anybody ask this question of Saban because it was kind of a, and I like the way you said it, kind of inferring that he's tough on people, he's hard, he's rigid, but maybe he's a lighter. He has a more lighter side. That is that off the field, or when does that come out? And he kind of paused, and it was a moment where he was like, it's almost like, do people think I'm some type of, like I'm this jerk with people, like I'm just, like I just bully them around? And it kind of like, I wouldn't, and he kind of just re-described it as not being hard, but essentially more in like a parental way, being, you know,
Exactly.
being tough with them in a way that's helping them develop. And I think that's one thing, talking about, you know, all these games you come into with a lot of high emotion. Everybody's now, they go from talking, it's trends. The media wants to talk about how do you feel about this game? What's your emotions? Like they want to psychoanalyze people. Most of these players aren't going to tell you much, and most of the people asking the questions, even though that's their intent to give some sort of psychoanalytic approach to what these people are doing, they're not qualified, nor do they understand what questions to ask to get those answers anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So I know a lot of media people outthink the room, and I could say I've probably been guilty on it a time or two as well. But I think the secret sauce kind of he has is where he has the amount of guidance and relationship with players to where he clearly communicates to them what his expectations are, but at the same time, he tries to reduce the amount of high emotional impact on the game because everything is play by play by play by play by play. It's not looking at this is the whole game. It's, you know, we didn't get to play for a champion. A lot of that build up and emotion and stuff, a lot of that's media talk. A lot of that's, you know, it's hyperbole around the event that's coming up. It's stuff that we talk about as media and fans, so we can get more emotionally engaged and fall into it. But it doesn't really have so much to do with the players. Is there emotions involved? Absolutely. Are they high emotions? Yes. Is it intense? Is it euphoric at times? Is it a time where maybe some of them new and a bit naive to the situation? Of course. So other guys more seasoned. This is more repetitive. I mean, Alabama, there's players on this team that have only known the end of their season is to play for a national title. Literally, because they've played in the last three. This will be their third straight national title they play in. And they've won 50% of them up to this point. We're going to find out Monday where it goes from there. But I don't think if you start seeing Alabama players with some sort of emotional ring, there's definitely something wrong. There's a crack there, and then there's going to be some openings. Saban doesn't have players play off emotion. He has them play off system, skill, and they've practiced. They practice harder than they play. They practice harder than they play to make the playing easier. This is stuff that we see this in the NFL again, uh, like Bill Belichick. They practice a lot of different situations over and over and over and over and over and over again because once that situation comes up, it's not foreign. They have something to draw from in their memory and preparation that they can put into that. Even if maybe ultimately isn't works, but now they have something to draw from. They understand situations and stuff like that. In football preparation come a lot. A lot of it comes down to situational play. Alabama is really good at staying with what they do, even if it's moving away from what they're best at. They always will do stuff that they're good at.
Yeah. Now, in reference to Coach Saban and the question I asked him, um, it kind of like goes off of the common theme that fan, many people that cover the sport of college football kind of think next. And you brought up Belichick, and that a lot of people compare Nixon to Bill Belichick. And I asked him that question because, I kind of wanted him to show that he's not necessarily a hard coach on his players and on his assistants. And he responded by saying that he wouldn't necessarily consider as a hard coach, but as a demanding type of coach. Um, like he has an expectation of what you can do, and you know how that translates on the field. But also that he wants to help his players develop as people inside the football field, outside of the football field, inside the university, and you know, in the community, so that they're a well-rounded person and not just a football player. And so he says that, if he wasn't able to reach one of his players and develop him as a person, that he didn't necessarily completely do his job. And so a lot of times when you see a lot of these Alabama players, they're disciplined. Yeah, I think that's the overall theme with the Alabama Crimson Tide football program, is that they produce disciplined players that reflect off of Nick Saban's philosophy. And so if he's able to push that towards his players and that they're able to succeed on the field, then they'll be able to use that same philosophy off the field and be successful people in the university and in their communities.
I know, just so people realize, most football coaches, especially at this level, they are very interested in their players being successful. Because their players being successful helps them continue to get players that help make them successful. You know, um, it's a two-way street, with any way you look at it. Sometimes uh, I know from being in management and stuff, like there's a lot of times where as a manager you learn more about managing and people and how to do the job better from situations you run into with boys versus the man. And I don't think Nick Saban is that way. He's like he said, he's demanding, but where great where greatness is wanted a lot is going to be demanded. If you want to be great, you got to give great effort. You can't give good effort to be great. So I think what he does, and again, he insists on coaching the defensive backs. So whereas a lot of head coaches will kind of march around practices and kind of oversee everybody,
Mm-hmm.
Nick Saban specifically oversees the defensive backs. He the cornerbacks specifically,
Yeah.
coaches them.
Yeah.
That's his position. He's a head coach and a position coach. Some coaches do this, some coordinators, so everybody kind of does it a little bit different. But
Yeah.
I think it isn't because he's a perfectionist. It's because he enjoys doing it. And if that was something he'd have to give up, I know Jeremy Pruitt said if he had to give up being the defensive back coach, the cornerback coach, he probably wouldn't do it anymore. So I will talk on Tuesday's show because inevitably, I'm not saying that it's happening after this game, but inevitably, everybody stops working. They retire.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very successful. Some because they have to. Obviously, in the 70s, he's closer to retirement than overstatement. But I will paint on Tuesday's show the exit of Nick Saban from college football, a timeline, and why I see it happening this way. So be sure to tune in to Tuesday's show of the Colt Hard Truth on Sports. Again, 8:30 to 11:30 every Tuesday. Get it on Blog Talk Radio and on the Spreaker app. You can download for free.
Yeah. In reference to Nick Saban, and him getting closer to the end of his his career. I wouldn't be surprised if it happens, very soon, particularly with this game here. If they're able to pull off the victory, like we predicted they would, he would have 6 national championships, and that would be most national championships from a coach pretty much in a year, and he would easily go down as the greatest head coach of all time. And with that accolade placed on him, it would almost seem like, okay, that's it. I've done this. What else is there for me to do as the head coach of Alabama? There's nothing else out there for me to do. Um, unless if he like stays there and gets one or two chips and puts himself at a level that you know very few people could reach in their coaching careers, then I don't necessarily see him doing much else in college football and in football in general. I think that he's kind of like said, okay, I'm getting to a point where I've done everything that could be done in college football. So what else is left? And now I just see his tail end or his retirement coming.
Well, I'll share how soon I think it is for Tuesday. But that's pretty going to wrap it up for this special edition on Sports Radio Show. Be sure to tune in Tuesday again from 8:30 to 11:30 on Blog Talk Radio. Also available on the free Spreaker app. Go to your app store, download it. If you're watching here on YouTube, definitely go down below, subscribe to this channel. You can see the video version, or you might be listening to the audio version. We have 2 different versions that go out. Follow us on SoundCloud as well. So you can listen to the podcast version there as well. And then, do you have a show tonight?
No, I won't have a show tonight on the GoLong Media channel. We do, for those that don't know, we usually do a boxing radio show every Sunday night at 7:30. We'll be resuming that particular show on the 14th to preview upcoming boxing matches that will kind of start up the week after. So the Boxing Choice radio show will be on Sunday, January 14th at 7:30.
Wonderful. And that's all for us here. I appreciate all of you who listened in, no matter who you are, where you're listening from. We appreciate it here. Head on over to the website, thechtonsports.com. Follow us online at thechtonsports. And you can get me at Matt Sports. That's all. Right. I'll fill that out.
Oh, this?
So it'll allow you to go back
Yeah, it does. Yeah, the thing with Spreaker, yeah.
offline now.
Yeah, that's offline.
So now, the video here in the next hour will be up.
You'll be processing, yeah, it's going to process and do everything there on that.